This is just absolute insanity out here. I've never seen anything like this. How are these buildings not torn down? Is my question. I visited Kinloch on a nice day when spring colors were in full effect. But outside of a new business park, that's about all the good there is to say about the place, because once we get into the heart of Kinloch, you'll see that just about every street is full of trash. Me personally, I've never seen anything like it, and that's saying a lot because at this point in the journey I've seen a lot of messed up places, and let me tell you, Kinloch easily wins the trophy for having the most illegal dumping. They even have multiple streets blocked off with trash being used as barriers to keep people like me from driving through. Or possibly it's an attempt to keep more people away from using Kinloch as their own personal landfill. Where I begin the video, however, is technically a part of the city of Berkeley. We're just south of Kinloch, crossing underneath I-70. And when driving into Kinloch, if you're coming in off of the freeway, you're likely going to be entering along Hanley Road, and if so, you'll come across some newer warehouses as both the cities of Berkeley and Kinloch have been trying to develop what was once an empty area. There's an Amazon distribution center along with some pharmaceutical companies, and there's a Staples and Schnucks distribution center as well. And right now we're turning onto Hanley Road, which is the main thoroughfare in the area, but they call this business park NorthPark, with a slogan of location, technology, and partnership. You've got to admit, it's a good location for this type of development, being next to I-70, I-170, and along with being right next to the airport. I'd say that it's a good use of the land, because currently there's over 1 million square feet of business space, and there's 11 different companies that lease from NorthPark's buildings. Over 5,000 permanent jobs have been created as a part of a $291 million investment, and here you can see an aerial view of NorthPark today, while this is what it looked like in 1996. You can see that all of this used to be residential, but the city of St. Louis purchased all of the homes that lied here back in the 1980s as a part of a planned airport expansion. At least over time, they were able to overcome mistakes from prior generations of leadership by repurposing the land as a business park. The NorthPark project began in 2006 in efforts through multiple municipalities, including the city of St. Louis, since the city of St. Louis is who bought out the properties in the 1980s as it was intended for airport expansion, even though this isn't the city limits of St. Louis. Confusing, I know, but anyway, NorthPark was made possible through an effort by the city of St. Louis County, Kinloch, Berkeley, and Ferguson. The project cleared over 1,000 foundations and basements that were left from the airport buyouts, along with over 120 tons of waste material. And in the end, the tax revenue from NorthPark is split between all of the municipalities involved. That's where all the positive things currently going on in Kinloch end, however, as we turn on to Reverend John Mitchell Sr. Avenue, which then turns into Martin Luther King Boulevard, as hidden behind all of these nicely groomed warehouses from Hanley Road is the city of Kinloch, or what's left of Kinloch. There's not much of a reason for anyone to want to be here these days. As you look around, most of the homes are demolished, while the ones that still stand have been taken over by nature. At the same time, most of the streets here are impassable. Also, there's no businesses left. There's just a few apartment complexes, and on the far northeast side of Kinloch, there's only one residential block left. There's also a couple of churches left, but that's about it. We haven't seen much of it yet, but you'll definitely see it as we go along. The only reason why anyone comes here these days is to dump off their old furniture on the street, so if you're looking for a cheap used mattress or a couch, then Kinloch is your place. Congratulations. Forget the word cheap, free. But you'd have to be really desperate to pick up any of the furniture that you see here, but hey, to each their own. Alright, so let's talk about the city of Kinloch. It's a small suburb of St. Louis located in St. Louis County, right next to the Lambert St. Louis International Airport. It's only about a square mile large. Kinloch incorporated as a city in 1948, and it's the oldest African American community to be incorporated in the state of Missouri. The name Kinloch has Scottish origins, meaning at the head of the lake. And that sounds nice and all, but there is no lake in Kinloch, Missouri. So it's not named Kinloch because it's located on a lake. Rather, the name is thought to have come from Major Richard Graham, who arrived in the St. Louis area in 1807 and used the name of Kinloch after the place of the same name in Virginia, which, needless to say, is located on a lake. Yeah, like I said earlier, I've never seen anything like this, or at least anything this bad. Anyway, by the year 1900, most of Kinloch was developed with help from the construction of the Wabash Railroad, which connected Kinloch with downtown St. Louis. During this time period, they say that a white homeowner sold to a black family, and when that happened, many of the white neighbors sold their homes and moved. By the 1920s, most of Kinloch was black, mostly because the homes here were more affordable. In the early 1900s, it was nearly impossible for a black family to buy a home in any of the St. Louis suburban communities, as prejudiced realtors steered them away from the white neighborhoods. But Kinloch was more accepting, and so were a few other smaller suburbs throughout St. Louis County. Most of the black residents that moved into Kinloch were returning from World War I, or they were coming over from the race riots of 1917 in East St. Louis, and that's how Kinloch came to be Missouri's first black city, through segregation behaviors of earlier generations. Back in the day when Kinloch was at its peak, it was home to the Kinloch School District, which formed in 1902. In it was the Vernon School, which served black families until it closed in 1967. Kinloch even had a high school. Over time, however, the Kinloch School District was merged into the Ferguson-Florissant School District, and there certainly isn't a high school in Kinloch these days, let alone an elementary school or pretty much anything else for that matter. The biggest reason as to why there's nothing left in Kinloch outside of the residential units that you see here, along with a block of homes on the north side, is because in the 1980s, the city of St. Louis purchased most of the property in Kinloch as a part of an expansion plan for the Lambert St. Louis International Airport. By the way, during the 80s, the Lambert St. Louis International Airport used to be a top 10 airport in the country in terms of the amount of passengers that flew in and out of the airport. Executives back then predicted that air travel would only increase. However, in St. Louis, air travel decreased. The St. Louis metro area used to be a top 10 populated metro area in the country, but it's definitely not that anymore. The greater St. Louis area hasn't necessarily shrunk, it just hasn't grown near as fast as other metro areas in the country have, such as Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Denver, and several other regions, as all of those have overtook Greater St. Louis in population size. So not only has the region not grown as quickly in population as predicted back in the 1980s, but air travel has actually decreased from its peak in 1988 when the airport saw 20 million annual passengers. Today that number is down to 13.7 million. After the buyouts, the airport did indeed end up building a new runway, but it was built using up land in the neighboring city of Bridgeton, not Kinloch. So basically, they never needed to buy out the property in Kinloch as they did. Kinloch was once home to 6,500 people back in 1960, but today, because of the airport buyouts, it's home to only 263. Anyway, now on to talking about how Kinloch was and still is a black city. The greater St. Louis area historically has been an extremely segregated region. In fact, there was a wall, or maybe a better word is a barricade, along Kinloch's eastern border to stop Kinloch residents from being able to drive into Ferguson, which used to be full of mostly white residents. Well, after protests in the 1960s, the barricades were removed from the connecting streets, but that was followed by the construction of fences along with either concrete or brick walls to keep the surrounding communities as separate from Kinloch as possible. A quick look at a satellite view of the area today almost tells the story in its entirety, as the dotted red line shows the city limits of Kinloch. Not that you would need that visual to be able to tell where the city limits are, because as you can see, all of the east and west streets in Kinloch come to an end at Mabel Avenue. You can also see that there's only one way into and one way out of Kinloch on the north side of town as well, that being the far northwestern corner, while the south and west sides of Kinloch, generally speaking, are bordered by freeways. Here's a look at the apartments that we just passed, and it's where the majority of Kinloch's remaining residents live today. Now, 263 is a very small sample size when it comes to people and economic stats, but the median household income is reported to be only $28,000 a year, along with a poverty rate of 53.9%. So, poverty is the way of life for most of today's Kinloch residents, not to mention the fact that the median value of owner-occupied housing units is less than $10,000. Moving on to some more history now, there used to be a place here called Kinloch Field, which in 1910 is where Teddy Roosevelt, who at the time just left office, became the first U.S. president to experience the innovation of flight. Some will say that Kinloch Field is on the grounds of what is now Lambert St. Louis International Airport, while others will claim that Kinloch Field was on separate grounds. Anyway, there is also a racetrack here called the Kinloch Park Racetrack, which was built in 1900. Later, the name changed to being the Kinloch Jockey Club, only to be followed by another name change, that being the Florissant Valley Jockey Club. The racetrack was forced to close in 1905, however, when gambling became illegal in Missouri. With that said, you've got to wonder what people from 1910 thought Kinloch would look like 100 years from then, but probably not like this, because once again, ever since the airport buyouts, Kinloch slowly but surely has seen nature reclaim itself, and today, only a small percentage of the original buildings remain, while the rest of the land continues to look like a landfill, as it's become a popular spot for illegal dumping. As I continue on, you'll see that it's difficult to navigate the streets of Kinloch, as you have barricades and you have debris laying across multiple streets. Anyway, some more things to know about Kinloch includes that it has a history of corruption. Even with it being such a small and poverty-stricken community, it's sad to see, but the corruption out of the mayor's office dates back to 2011 when former Mayor Keith Conway, according to St. Louis Today, was sentenced to 21 months in federal prison for embezzlement, as he used tens of thousands of dollars of Kinloch City funds to pay for his own personal vacations and other expenses. Conway took vacations to Vegas, a cruise to the Bahamas, and spent money on timeshares in Florida for him and his friends. Conway also stole money from Kinloch to pay off credit card balances, pay personal tax bills, and utilities for a city-owned apartment where he was living rent-free. Sounds like former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick's twin brother, if you ask me. Additionally, the courts ordered Conway to pay back the city over $62,000. Conway was the mayor of Kinloch from 1999 all the way to 2011. However, court documents state that the crimes were committed from January 2009 to March 2011. Upon being arrested, Conway pleaded not guilty and walked out free on a $25,000 bond under the agreement that he wouldn't contact any witnesses. Of course, Conway then went straight to the city hall and tried to get other city employees to cover for him and lie on his behalf in an effort to get himself out of trouble, so you can add witness tampering as a charge that Conway faced. However, thanks to Conway, in 2015, a new ordinance was passed by the city in 2015 stating that the Board of Aldermen had the power to impeach anyone in office who engages in conduct of moral turpitude or in any other such crime. With that said, here comes Mayor Betty McRae, who was quote-unquote elected as the mayor in 2015. McRae was impeached on her first day of being in office to allegations of foregoing overdue rents on city-owned property in exchange for votes in the election for mayor. She became argumentative in the parking lot of the city hall on her first day, as they didn't let her get into the office, and she ordered for multiple city employees to be fired, even though she didn't have the power to do so because she was impeached. Further investigations revealed that McRae received votes from 2 apartments, with a total of 6 registered voters tied to those addresses, but those apartments were vacant and stripped of all valuables such as furniture and appliances. As the investigation continued, there were up to 27 people who didn't live in Kinloch that were illegally registered to vote, which explains how McRae was able to win the vote over her opponent 38-18. I mean, Kinloch has less than 300 people, so in this case, literally every vote matters. Anyway, it was later discovered that McRae obtained a house from the city in 2008, only to find out that the house was given to McRae for free by former disgruntled Mayor Keith Conway, even though McRae said that she bought the house for $9,000. And it doesn't end there, as in 2019, then Mayor Darrell Williams was impeached shortly after being elected as he owed personal property taxes when he declared to make a run for mayor. So this made it 2 impeachments within a 4-year period in a city that has less than 300 people. Talk about drama. Williams was also said to be a fugitive by the Kinloch Board of Aldermen for misdemeanor traffic offenses as he was driving with a suspended license along with driving without insurance. And it's unfortunate because Kinloch is a city that wants to rebuild and they want to get rid of all the trash, they want to clean things up and make things look more attractive, but having multiple corrupt mayors isn't going to cut it, especially for a community that's high in poverty and a community that saw 75% of its city get purchased out by the airport, which planned an expansion that never happened. That's the last thing that this city needs. Now, the illegal dumping problem in Kinloch has been going on for years. It's easy for people to get away with it when they come by at night because there's no streetlights and there's no police officers patrolling the area. The trash piles over the years just keep getting higher and higher. The city of Kinloch has claimed that they've tried to clean up the streets several times before, but they say that the piles of trash just keep coming back. There have even been multiple community efforts over the years where volunteers come to clean things up on their own time, only to see the piles of trash return as more illegal dumpers come through to get rid of their things. The biggest problem is that some of the land is owned by the city of St. Louis, as over 400 lots are owned by St. Louis to be exact. Even though it's not a part of the St. Louis city limits, but that's because the city of St. Louis bought out so much of the land for the airport expansion. Some of the land is also owned by the Lambert St. Louis International Airport, and some of the land is owned by the city of Kinloch, so that makes for a complicated situation on how to patrol the area and for who to hold accountable for the responsibility of trying to keep the illegal dumpers away. They say that contractors will show up on an almost nightly basis sometimes during the summer to dump off their trash. So, with nobody there to stop them, how can you expect that to ever stop? I was able to talk to a resident, and this is what she had to say about all the garbage laying around. How did all of this get to be this way? All the trash everywhere.
Well, when they were supposed to expand the airport, bought out a lot of people, they were supposed to expand. They didn't actually expand, they just cleared the land, stopped. And then after clearing the land, people just use it as a dump spot. They come back to clean it up some, but they don't finish cleaning it up. So they half do it and then people just continuously dump.
It's an unfortunate reality that the city of Kinloch has to face, and it will likely continue to be for the foreseeable future. Someone could come here and clean up all the trash and spend a month doing it with a crew of people from a local church or something, but chances are it's just going to come right back because there's nobody here to patrol the streets and stop it from coming back. Well, I better mention this before I forget, as some of the notable people to have called Kinloch home includes the rapper Lawrence Franks Jr., aka Huey. You know, the guy who's mostly known for his song Pop, Lock, and Drop It? Yeah, he's from Kinloch. He was born here and unfortunately, he died here at a young age after being shot in front of his home in 2020. And yes, Huey still lived in Kinloch after all of his fortune and fame. Well, you also have comedian Dick Gregory, who is from Kinloch, in which Gregory Drive that runs east and west through town is named after him. Lastly, actress Jennifer Lewis, who has had a very successful Hollywood career, is also from Kinloch. Meanwhile, I continued to drive around Kinloch to see what the rest of the city looked like. And the street that I just turned onto is closed up ahead, so I had to turn around. And this is as far as I can head down along this street, so once again, I had to turn around. Since there's only one way in and one way out on the series of streets that I just went through, I'll speed up the video ahead until we get to a part that we haven't yet seen. Oh, and by the way, we just passed a car lying upside down on a public street. Oh, what a surprise. The street is closed once again due to trash laying across the road, so once again, I turned around. Oh hey look, this street is open. That's nice. Let's take it. And there's a couple of older churches that are still standing around Kinloch. This is the St. James Missionary Baptist Church. Now, there's certainly a lot of trash piled right here, but to me, this looks like a community or a group or a volunteer effort of everyone putting trash in one spot to be able to then put it into dumpsters to haul off. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what it seemed like to me. Lastly, this appears to be the only stretch of street remaining in Kinloch that has a collection of livable homes. Well, it's sad to see the condition that Kinloch is in today, but this is the condition that Kinloch is in today. Hopefully all the trash can not only be removed, but hopefully there can be some patrols on the streets in the future, whether it's from the city of Kinloch, the city of St. Louis, maybe St. Louis County comes over with their police dispatch and they start patrolling the streets. But somebody has to do something, and there has to be a plan in place to keep people away from dumping off their trash on the city streets of Kinloch. Otherwise, the problem will never be solved. People, once again, like I said, people could come and clean up the trash all they want in whatever kind of group effort or volunteer effort, but it's just going to keep coming back if there's nobody here to keep the illegal dumpers away. And if I were to be brutally honest here, I wouldn't be surprised if Kinloch didn't exist in the future, if everything became a ghost town, and if the remaining residents moved out and the land was annexed by surrounding communities. Or maybe it just disappears and becomes a part of unincorporated St. Louis County. Anyway, it wouldn't surprise me to see that happen. Well, with that said, I do end the video here. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, as doing all of those things helps these videos destroy the evil monster that is the YouTube algorithm. Also, make sure to hit that notification bell and select yes, so that you can be notified every time that I upload a new video. If you enjoyed this video, then you might enjoy checking out some of the featured playlists on this channel. Videos with amazing insights on other places like what you saw here can be found in my St. Louis Suburbs playlist or in my Missouri playlist. Last but not least, if you can't get enough of me on here, you can always go follow me on my other social media accounts, and those links are below. We'll see you next time. Peace.